day begins. Oftentimes, I find myself thinking about parenting, but not from the point of view a lot of people may consider it. Sometimes I see movies and sometimes I just wonder what would have happened differently if probably that character did something differently or got parented a lot differently. Lately, I've been thinking about relationships of people in Bible stories we have heard and read, stories that have been told to us in maybe in school or in church, and I find myself looking at them from, of course, my bird's eye view, from my perception or perspective as a parent and as one who is inspiring others to do better when it comes to parenting too. And one of such relationships that I've really one relationship that has really caught my eye in recent time is a relationship between David and Solomon. You see, what we read or have heard about those two is of how David was a man after God's heart, how he killed the lion and the bear, how he was able to defeat the giant called Goliath, right? Of course, one of the greatest kings in Israel. And then we heard about Solomon, how he asked God for wisdom after offering 1,000 offerings, and how he presided over the two women who had the one of which, whom or which one of whom's child was dead. And you know how the story went. He said, okay, you can kill the child. And then the mother goes, no, just let the child leave and give it to the other woman instead. You see, I try to look at such stories or such people a lot deeper, and thinking about cultural legacies sort of now gave me another angle to look at their relationship from. Now, I thought of looking at their strengths. What did these people have as strengths? What were their successes? What stories were recorded about their successes? Did they have flaws? Did these flaws cause them to have pitfalls? And today I am here with you with my rumblings, my musings, so that together we would really ask questions. So there will be more of questions into these episodes than there would be answers. So that, we are not coming here to spoon feed you or babysit you. We're coming here to help you, to provide crumbs for you to think for yourselves, because no, you're not outsourcing your critical thinking to us. We are creating a platform that would enable you that will give you the tools to be able to look at some things closely for yourself and pick out ideas for your own self that relate to your specific journey, right? So if you have not liked this video yet, if you have not shared, please do so while we dive right in. The first thing I considered was their successes, right? Their strengths and successes. And the first one was the legacy of leadership. Of course, David fought a good fight. David was that soldier who went into war with God backing him. Remember when he asked God, shall I go? Should I pursue them? Will I overtake? Will I recover it all? A lot of people do not go into life's battles without first asking for God's mind about it. They just plunge in and they do. And of course, because you have not inquired of God, you are not sure, because you do not have a track record of making such inquisition. You go in and before you find any storms, you are afraid. But when you go into battles with the confidence that you're not alone, that you're not going all by yourself, you see that you'd have the courage to face and weather whatever storms come along. The legacy of leadership. He fought a good fight. He established a kingdom that was united. He provided a very solid foundation for his son to become king. He was that man who, when he sinned against God, he tore his garment, he knelt down and sought for forgiveness. He did not justify what he had done. He did not leverage his position as the man after God's heart and not beg for forgiveness. He acknowledged his sins and he was able to always plead for mercy. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why he was indeed a man after God's heart. His religious devotion to something worthy of note. The relationship he had with God, right from when he was a boy, right when he was anointed, until when he was throughout his life as a king. Yes, he had a lot of pitfalls, some of which we'll be considering today and drawing lessons from. But then he had that relationship with God. Remember where he was meant to make sacrifices to God and somebody offered to give him the lamb, or was it the whatever what I can't remember right now, but the animal he was meant to use for the offering, it was offered for free, and he told them, I will not give God what costs me nothing. You see, a lot of us parents these days, we just want a roller coaster ride of awesome, flawless, stressless moments. We don't want to go through any challenges because we believe that because we are children of God, our children should not be sick. Because we are children of God, we should not have challenges. Meanwhile, those challenges are what define us. You see, we are quick to complain about problems that have been sent our way for us to provide solutions for us to learn from, for us to really get stronger by. If we keep running away, if we keep fighting the things that are meant to strengthen us, you see that we'll be wasting a lot of time. No, in the heat of the moment, it's usually not easy. Watching maybe one of or all of your kids sick at the same time, it is definitely very tough. It is challenging. I don't even wish that for an enemy. It is very difficult right there and then. But after you have been through it, you now have that, your body remembers, you now have that confidence that because you have gone through something similar before and overcame it, you will now be able to face all the challenges head on and overcome them too. David was very devoted to God, and from the beginning of Solomon's rule or reign as king, he also was devoted to God. No wonder when God told him was going to be king, when he acknowledged that he was young and he didn't know much about ruling a kingdom, and then he asked God for wisdom that he'll be able to rule the people that God put in his care, for understanding so that he'll be able to steer their affairs right. And God not only made him wise, he made him so much so that no one before him was as wise, and no one that was to come after him would be as wise, and gave him much more than he asked for. He gave him wisdom too. In one of our episodes here, I talked about David doing so much for his son that the prayer point Solomon had was different. You see, I am forced to wonder sometimes if it's your son or mine or my daughter. I don't have sons. If it was my daughter in the same position, what would they really ask for? Would they ask for iPads? Would they ask for a trip to Bali? Or what exactly would they ask for? Would they ask that, this my boss will stop bothering me? If you fight well for your children, if you lay the foundation right, burst, their prayer points go different. They will not be asking from a place of lack. They'll be asking from a place of awareness. He knew he was king and he knew what was lacking. He knew what he needed. You see, it is one thing to ask, it's another thing to ask right. Some of us ask questions, but they are usually not the right ones. Some of us make demands, but they are usually not the right ones. You see, you're occupying an office, what you are asking for to be able to execute very well in that office is different from what you actually precisely, correctly need. It takes a lot of discernment to be able to know, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of sincerity and honesty for you to know what you have and what you do not have, for you to know what you need in that office so that you'll be able to ask right. As a parent, what exactly do you have right now that would enable you parent right, govern your family well? As a parent, what exactly are you lacking right now that you need or require to maybe acquire, to maybe get from God that you do not even know of. You see, it takes a lot of awareness. Like, you have to really, really know yourself. Man, know thyself, and to your own self be true. If you do not know yourself, if you do not have that sincere relationship with yourself, you'll find out that you have an opportunity, a life-changing opportunity to ask for something, and you go and ask for something that's absolutely not it. They were both devoted to God, even though much later both of them strayed, of course. David lost it when he went on to not just commit adultery with Bathsheba, but to have her husband killed. But in his usual way, he begged God for forgiveness. And Solomon was the seed that was given to them as a sign of God's forgiveness, as a sign of a second chance, as a proceed from that repentance. But then Solomon kept on going. He went far from what his father said. Do not frolic with these people. Do not fraternize with them. Do not have any dealings with them. But yet he kept on going, and that was part of his undoing. We'll get to that. The next is the wisdom and accomplishments they both shared. David was wise, don't you agree? How he was able to survive the whole fracas with Saul, how he was able to get out of that whole thing alive, how he knew not to touch God's anointed, because he had a chance to kill King Saul, but he said he was not going to lay a finger on him. Instead, he tore rather a part of his robe as proof that he had an opportunity to kill him, but he did not. Bacons. Like I said, this will be about a lot of questions. I am forced to wonder, how many times as parents do we have people's destinies in our hands and we crush them simply because we have the power to, forgetting that that person may just well be be God's anointed that we have touched. You see? That God is dealing with somebody sometimes does not give you permission to meddle or to do something about it, because he's jealous over everyone, right? Let us come to your domestic stuff. Let's not take it too far. Let's not go to your offices. Let's keep it at home. You see that staff that you are dehumanizing, that you are talking down on every time. Have you ever paused to wonder if your home is just a transitory phase in their journey to greatness? Have you ever paused to wonder if you were meant to nurture, to pour into them, to build them up? So much so that you're doing it right in front of your children, forgetting that you are setting the pace for how they will treat other people in the future. You talk down on your mates, you talk down on your nannies, you talk down on your drivers and everyone in between, and you expect your children to grow up around other people who make their lives easier. Burna Boy sang the song, I be common person, but my happiness. So, and then at some point he said, everybody get rule, no means say your own rule pass my rule. What you are doing is starting a cultural legacy for how your children will honor the people in their lives or not. You are not telling them, and this one I'm treating them like this because of this. You see, because a lot of people have had bad experiences with domestic staff, they have now sold the tale, they have sold the narrative, and even though you have not had a personal one yourself, you are now acting from other people's experiences and behaving to them in such a demeaning manner. See, even if you have had experiences of your own, that Mr. A hurt you does not mean that Mr. B will do so too. And yes, even though they hurt you, how about you forgive and let go? How about you show that you are beacons after all? How about you forgive and let God take care of them? Because indeed, vengeance is his, right? It is very difficult to say forgive. I'm not even saying forget, because when you forget the lessons you must have learned from the experience. And now saying that instead of treating the next person ill because the other person treated you a certain way, how about you don't let anybody change you? high about you be the change the world needs. It is difficult. See, I am not being sanctimonious. I've told you people before when we started this podcast that I'm not going to sit on a moral high horse and be that preacher or teacher or person who will say, yes, you have to do this, acquire to perspire so that you can require. Nah, I'm just saying it does us a lot more good when we indeed set the pace, lead, model what we want our children to learn. Have I been hurt? Of course. Who hasn't been? Do I bear some scars to that effect? Of course I do. But will I invariably change from who I am? No, I'll pick the lessons, modify my everything if I have to, set my course better. But one thing I'm not going to do is become an evil person because someone else was mean to me. Because you would not have lost something, you would have given them the power to alter the person that you are. It took them a lot of years to get through the whatever. You see, broken people try to break people, hurt people, or try to hurt people too. So if you allow them hurt you and you become a hurter yourself, you see that they will not only have hurt you, they would have changed you. And who knows? Who knows what will become of you, because it took them a lot of years to master that personality. You are just coming into it. Who knows what will become of you from here on out if you toe that line, if you toe that path. You see, wisdom is what took David through everything he went through. And wisdom was what his son asked for so that he would be able to lead his people. Did they accomplish a lot in their lifetimes? Of course they did. Of course they did. Of course they did. So I'm beginning to think that it is not just enough to be a parent. You must also ask for wisdom so that you'll be able to accomplish a lot. I'm beginning to think that it's not just about wealth alone, it's about also gaining wisdom. How do you gain wisdom? Take courses, read books, listen to podcasts such as these. Listen to people who have gone ahead of you. You know, there are parents who have had their own negative stories. They have felt their own pain. They have gone through a lot. If you make it your life's work to make life a library, you will find out that everything becomes a story from which you learn from. Every story becomes something you pick lessons from, so that you on your own will not make some of the mistakes those people made, or you can consolidate on their successes and build better for yourself. What indeed were their pitfalls? What were their flaws? The first one is family discord and tragedy. See, when I was looking through all the notes, I couldn't help but wonder, how can someone who had a relationship, such a close relationship with God, so much so that he was called the man after God's heart. Do you know what it means to be a man after God's heart? Like God is not a human being. No. Do you know how much you have to be? I sometimes think about it. What did he do that made him the man after God's heart? Was it that pious? Of course it wasn't so much. But then how come? But that's not what we're looking at today. What I thought about is someone that close to God's heart, after God's heart, could not raise a family well? How? That man who could conquer many nations, who could tear down strongholds for God, could not raise his family well. And it got me thinking, is it possible that he was so focused on his career as king, as soldier, right, that he did not have time to parent well? How come one of his sons abused his sister? How come? Have you thought about it too? How come? A man after God's heart? How come he didn't do anything about it? I asked these questions and I was wondering, could it be that he was too shocked? Like the thing shocked him, he could not wrap his head around it. Is it that he was disappointed? Is it that he partly blamed it on himself, that he could not do right by Tamar? Why? What even got into Amnon in the first place? Is it that he wanted God to take vengeance by himself? What really happened? Or is it that he loved both children so much that he did not want to punish one for his sin against the other? But however we look at it, let us not fail to see that there is a parenting flaw in that regard. These people, the children, were not raised right. If not, if there was sibling mentorship and harmony amongst them, Amnon would not put his hand on Tamar in the first place. If there was consequence for actions, right? I don't think that he would have dared it even if it came to his mind. And if there were indeed consequences for actions, David would have done something. He wouldn't have been the other son's place to now go and kill Amnon. How can a sibling kill his own sibling? A man after God's heart. That you are a pastor, a preacher, a king, a prophet, a warrior. You are doing well, a captain of industry, an innovator does not mean that you should neglect your family. You should strive to win in all areas of your life. Don't be so good at one that you fail to nurture the other, especially when lives are at stake, the lives of your children and their children after them. Have you seen how that a person can be as great as David but yet not raise children right? Have you seen that a king such as David can actually have children who would not just abuse themselves but have the heart, the nerve to kill one of their own too? Does it even shock you that Solomon had Adonijah killed just to protect his claim to the throne? You see, if you do not quench sibling rivalry, if you do not model the right thing, if you just leave things to chance as a parent, if you do not put your feet down and establish clearly defined rules and set values, you see that your children will turn against themselves for power. Power now may be, I am the owner of the pencil. Power tomorrow may be, I want to take the first stone playing games. Power tomorrow may be, I am the heir apparent to the throne, or I deserve to rule. And then they'll kill themselves. Of course, there was a flaw in how David handled his household. And that again we'll see much later in Solomon's house. How can someone have 700 wives? 700 wives of royal birth. All these people brought their mindsets, their ideologies into the home. Of course, it was one large home, right? How did he manage 300 concubines? Would you now see that? I'm thinking about it. I have 3 children, and sometimes it feels like there are more than that. Just yesterday, I was wondering, do I have 15 kids in my house? Why are people being so loud? It's summer holidays here, and oh my God. Sometimes it becomes a handful. I just remind myself that very, very soon they'll grow up, and then all this noise, I'll start missing it. Will I? Well, let's get there first, right? But then 1,000 women, we've not mentioned children. Imagine, okay, just a picture for once. You go to a wedding, the hall is filled up with 1,000 guests. That was very, and that was the number of women Solomon had in his life. All those 1,000 guests put together in that big marquee. What they were all Solomon's wives. Of course they would have had children. Would he have been able to manage all of that? You see, I learned that he took in most of those wives to secure his reign, right? Again, monomaniacally focused on his success as king, that he did not even consider the repercussions on his place as father or as husband. No wonder they led his heart away from God. Whatever you do not teach now will come back in the future. And definitely, even though you are not there, for David, it cost for the kingdom to be torn away from Solomon. Yes, God promised him because of the relationship he had with David, not to do it in Solomon's lifetime, it took out 10 of the tribes and left only two. So the shortfalls from your personal life can even have a ripple effect much into your that career you are building, so that you have to build habits, you have to put things in place so that you are not just winning in life alone, you are winning also not just in your personal life but in your career too, your relationship with other people. I believe that David had a lot to do in parenting that he did not do, and that of course watered down into Solomon's life, and how of course how will he even manage 1,000 wives, 1,000 women rather, how. The next one would be succession issues. Solomon was clearly not the next in line. It wasn't going to be, it was not the first son, right? At the end of the day, yeah, Nathan and Bathsheba made sure that he got anointed and crowned as king. But would you expect the person who's supposed to be king to just sit and fold his hands, or would you expect Solomon to just keep quiet and take it, or watch Solomon just watch them make sure he doesn't become king? That in itself creates a rift. And what happened? Adonijah was killed just to protect Solomon's claim to the throne. Again, a brother killing a brother just for power. A brother killing a brother for power. When Solomon himself died, which of his children self would have been king in the first place? Rehoboam, okay, became it. But at the end of the day, see all the turmoil that was involved. Are these things preventable? Yes. How? By just being an excellent parent in the first place, by being a legacy conscious parent, because your flaws will go back. Remember, the other day when we talked about Malcolm Gladwell's quote about cultural heritage, we talked about cultural heritage having culture having long lives, right? They live a very long life. They are a strong force. Whatever you do not take care of now, your children must confront. So whatever they've learned from you, we give them the courage to fight and probably give them the skill sets to win. The next one is moral failings. So David looked down and then saw this very beautiful woman taking a bath. It didn't just stop there. And I don't mind being the devil's workshop. If he was fighting, if he was busy doing what kings do, he wouldn't have in that moment even being there. Probably he was resting after fighting. Who knows? Just who knows? But then what we're looking at is the fact that he did not exercise any form of self-control. I don't think he knew anything about respecting boundaries or being contented with what you had. If not, he would have respected the fact that Bathsheba was married. But then he did not stop at inviting her into his bed. She got pregnant, and when they found out, he orchestrated for Uriah to come back. He came back but did not touch her, and he had to plan for him to be killed in battle. Again, just because you want to, that sometimes you think that sin is small and then you can cover it up. It may take killing someone to cover up that sin you currently are involved in right now. It is very difficult to be honest. It is very, very difficult to be disciplined, but at the end of the day, it serves you better, because it not only helps you now, it helps set the foundation for your children. Don't do it because of you. Don't be faithful to your vows because of you. Do it because of your children. Do it because you want to stand in front of them and say, yes, you can do it because I too could, or I too am doing it, or I too can. Went on to kill him. And then are you surprised that Solomon went on to have many wives too? Went on to have concubines too? And at the end of the day, they brought in their God, that great king, who was the one who was who built that magnificent temple for God, was now building altars for Moabite gods. That great king, whatever you do not fight as a father, you will fight your son. Whatever you do not conquer as a father, your son will have to battle with. So crucify your flesh right now so your spirit may live, and you'll be fighting a battle for your generation. Crucify your flesh right now. Right? Say no. It's very difficult. It's challenging, but that's by God's grace is sufficient for us, right? Look at the relationship between God and Jesus, for instance. Because God is God. Jesus came into the world. He lived amongst us. He had every chance to sin too, but he did not. He did not reduce himself. And then he gives us that much courage, and he tells us as our father, that because I came and I saw these things and I overcame them, I am sure that you too can. So go to a place where you can tell your son of mine, I know you'll be faced with a lot of challenges. You can do it because I did it too. So that you can counsel them from a place of wealth in knowledge. My son, when I faced this is how I went through it. No, it's not going to be easy. We were not called to ease. But he said that through it all, he will be with us. And because he had conquered the world, we too will be able to conquer it, especially because he's now with the Father and he's praying for us. And through his name, we'll be able to do all things, right? Overindulgence is another thing that was a pitfall Solomon had. Yeah, you're king, you have it all. Sometimes I have noticed that some people are better off poor. They are better off poor than they are rich, because when they are poor, they are unable to afford a lot of luxuries, in quote. When they are poor, they are not able to afford a certain style. Rather, they are more committed to their families. Of course, when you don't have money to do any, you wanted to carry women to start with, but when they now get blessed, you see, sometimes people give so much power to money that it now becomes their undoing. You're not able to afford the car, so you buy a car. Yeah, you're able to afford the fine things of life. You now forget where you are coming from, and you start indulging in immoralities. It's not just sexual. There are a lot of them in between. Sometimes you find out that some wives are regretting the fact that their husbands came into money or into wealth, because when he was poor, there were certain things he could not do. You must master yourself, especially now that you don't have yet. Even though you have, you must ask God to take charge of your flesh so that you will not bow to the whims and caprices of money. Because money is a spirit, it will drive you. They say money is a spirit, it brings out the person in you, right? So that some people are like, it's because he now has. No, it has always been that person. He now has money. That's why the money is now able to bring out an expression of that person who is within. So don't think that because these things are not being expressed now that you don't have, they are not there. You must scan yourself. The only person who can be so sincere with you is you. Tell yourself the truth. I have anger issues. God, please help me now. Don't wait till you are the governor of a state before you start dealing with it. I have this challenge. Don't wait till you become a public figure. You know yourself more than anyone else. That you have yelled, whether it's by mistake or something triggered it, means that you have the propensity to do so. Why don't you start working on it beginning from now? Don't wait till you are caught up in an embarrassing, awkward situation in public before you now start blaming on the devil. Work on your own self. Take out time to expunge yourself of whatever shortcomings that may serve as and hindrance to what God will do with you or through you in the future. He had so much that he had to now marry that many wives, and see what they did to him at the end of the day. What is common between both kings, David and Solomon? The first one is human frailty. Yes, we are all humans, right? As kings, as prophets, as bishops, as captains of industries, as CEOs, as business owners, we are all human, right? Despite the fact that they were extraordinarily gifted or that they had a relationship with God, they had their shortcomings. You see, that you're anointed does not stop you or now make you no longer a man or a human being. And that you are gifted or talented does not remove the fact that you are human. You must always subject that humanness to the authority of God's word. Sometimes fast, not because you have a problem or because you want to put your flesh in check, right? So that when you are faced with temptations, you'll be able to stand firm and say no. The next thing they share in common is the consequence of polygamy. You see, it's not in my place to question your choice of who to marry or how many people to settle with, but sometimes you see it from a legacy perspective, right? Most of the problems they will have, or even though there will be a lot of squabble when you are there, most of the challenges they will have when you are gone, is it really worth it? Is it truly really worth it? Is it worth putting those children in through all that stress? You may not be here when they'll be fighting each other for whatever property you leave. Even while you are here, it's even difficult to have siblings from the same parents to get along, not to talk of other maybe per- children that do not share the same moms. Is it worth the stress? Can we just for once consider other people other than ourselves, and then try as much as possible to do right by them? Let's not look at this from a religious point of view, right? Let us stop being being those people who hide under certain umbrellas because it serves us. Let us be sincere individually as humans, as people. Forget about religion first. And let's think about it as humans. Amongst your children right now, look at it closely. Do you like the relationship amongst them? Are you setting the pace? Even there are, I believe that there are polygamous homes where children are actually even more closely knit than monogamous homes. But then look at there are the exemptions, right? There are the anomalies. Look at a lot of polygamous families that are the norms. There's a lot of scuffle, there's a lot of fight and whining and bickering. And then when you're gone, all the stress and all the fighting, is it really worth it? Both of them had that's polygamous nature, and look at how their families turned out. I'm not saying that polygamy is the reason why, but it was one of the reasons why. I'm not saying that every polygamous home suffers such setbacks, but I'm saying if you can avoid it, why not do it in the first place? Spiritual drift. Both men drifted. David drifted when he married Bathsheba, but he reconciled and he went back to God. Solomon kept at it. I think he came back to himself, because the book of Ecclesiastes just talks about how he had gone through life and he has seen that like vanity upon vanity is vanity. See, sometimes children are very curious. You are locking your child inside the house and preventing them from, some people are going to work, they take their DSTV card with them. One day your children will hear from their classmates the stories you don't want them to watch. Build skills instead, instead of taking care of effects, take care of what will possibly cause your child to be that curious. If you are the place of first mention for certain things, they will not be curious over them. It will not come as a shock to them when they hear it outside. Train up a child in the way you should go. Teach them rather. Prepare them for the journey ahead. Because at the end of the day, that you're taking that car to work does not mean that they will not be exposed to these things. That you have not, it therefore means that you are afraid because you have not equipped them enough. If you have prepared very well for battle, the fear that may come may just be anxiety posing as fear, or you interpreting anxiety as fear, right? You will not be afraid. For all the things you've been prepared adequately for, you were not afraid. So if you have raised your children right, you know that whether you are there or not, they'll do the right thing. Why are you going to work with your DSTV card? Why are you telling them not to do A, B, C, or D? and then they will obey you because you are there. When you don't turn your back, they will do the direct opposite. Sell it to them like it is their lives, and then they are in the driver's seat, so that they will not think that they are obeying because mommy said so, or because that it will make daddy happy. Let them do it because it is the right thing to do. Let them do it because it is their own lives. Whatever they do right now or not will have a negative or positive consequence in the not so distant future. Also, teach them legacy consciousness. Tell them that decisions that they have made today can have an amazing effect in 30 years to come, or have a very bad effect too. Both men drifted spiritually, but then it took a very long time, and a lot had gone down the drain before Solomon came to himself and realized. What parenting lessons can we draw from this entire comparison we have made? We've talked about their successes and strengths. We've talked about their flaws and pitfalls. We've talked about what they shared in common. What parenting lessons can you learn as beacons? Because what is the use reading a story or hearing one if you do not pick up lessons for yourself? What is the gain in, they say experience is the best teacher? Please, I don't want to experience a lot of things. What is the gain in experiencing it yourself when you may not have the grace to get out of it alive? When you may not have the grace, the privilege to come out of it without scars? Is it not better to learn from other people's falls and mistakes than for you to learn of your own? It will hurt more, right? It will cost a lot more. Number one is legacy and example. We are always drumming, we are always hammering on legacy consciousness when it comes to parenting. If you are raising your children, if you are living your life with that legacy consciousness, you would be able to prioritize the things that matter at every single time. You see, we have always established that balance is not possible. Now, as a person who is very ambitious or goal driven, there will be times in your life where one part will not be in balance. But in that moment, make sure that, okay, if you're not able to give an hour, for instance, to certain things, can you give a bit less? Can you now double back down and bring that other part up to 100% or more when you now have free time? You cannot, in the 12 key areas of your life, you must strive to be winning. It's better to be on a solid 70% in all across board than to be in 100 in some, while on some others are deficient or are very, very poorly on a 20. You must always take inventory of your life in every season and ask yourself, where do I need to give more of myself in this time? What do I need to drop? What are the plastic or rubber balls that I need to drop? What glass balls do I need to secure? Because there are some balls that once they drop and shatter, there's nothing that's going to fix them back. You must identify what those balls are in your life and protect them at all cost. The next lesson we should learn is discipline and guidance. Your children need a parenting figure, not just as a figurehead, but as that person who is present, whose presence is felt. If your presence is not felt, your absence will not make any difference. You must, it's difficult, right? You are not their friend. There's a season in their lives when you are a disciplinarian. You are not their friends. You should not do some things because you want them to love you. You should not be the yes man because you want them to feel a certain way about you. There are times where you don't have to be your children's friend. You remember we've talked about parenting seasons. You should know when you should be that disciplinarian and model. Much later, when they get it, when they are much older, when you're in that mentorship place, you can now be a bit more friendly. But that does not mean you have to be a beast anyway. You have to have a relationship, but you must be firm with boundaries, clearly define them, and protect or maintain them. The lack of control and oversight in David and Solomon's families, of course, Solomon's was an offshoot of David's, right? Led to a lot of tragedies, not just in their lives, but in the kingdom. So you see, ripple effects, right? Domino effect. It starts from your personal life and then boils over into your career, social, spiritual, financial life. So you must take care of your personal life so that it would not backfire in the future. Faith and humility. They both had great faith in God, even though Solomon's heart was turned against God much later in life. right? I I I am of a strong opinion that we must teach our children about God and teach them the consequence of not being with Him. We must understand from a very, very young age. Tell it to them in the morning, in the afternoon, shout it, in the night, in front of the city gates, preach it, so that they will know the truth. This word of truth shall not depart from their heart, and they shall meditate upon it day and night. They should be able to understand the fundamental role God plays in our lives, so that whether they have now or they have not, whether they have a lot in the future, they will not bow to foreign gods. They will not lose their place. In this case, Solomon even had a lot. He was very rich. He was blessed, but at the end of the day, he still was turned against God because that foundation was not right, because that parental guidance was not there. Probably from the beginning, it was whatever he picked up from his father that he was using. And then if that foundation was solid, there's no way his heart would have been turned against God. There's no way he would have told the path that he had to toe later on in life. We should train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he will not depart from it. Let's not leave anything to chance. Let's not leave anything to assumption. Let's not leave anything to maybe just in case, God forbid. Like we've always said, that's not a strategy. You must be like a grandmaster playing chess. You should be able to figure out 5 or 15 moves from this one and be able to live today with tomorrow in mind. I hope you have learned something from this episode. If you have, please do share with your friends and loved ones. And of course, do not keep us as your best kept secret. It is my earnest desire. It'll be of great joy, to bring me great joy and happiness if you not only watch these episodes or share them, begin to practice one after the other, begin to think deeper too. There are a lot of points we have not considered today. You may even know the story better than I do. You may have read it more extensively than I have. Go back and sit down. What parenting lessons can you draw from David and Solomon, from their successes and strengths, from their flaws and pitfalls? And I hope that you implement the lessons and then you pass them on as legacies to your children, so that collectively we'll make a society a better one for the generations that are to come. Thank you so much for spending time with us today on this episode, and see you will meet again in yet another insightful episode. Stay excellent.